Welcome to the Master the NEC podcast, the ultimate destination for anyone passionate about the electrical trade. Whether you're a seasoned electrician, an eager apprentice, or just someone who wants to dive deep into the world of electrical work, you've come to the right place. Join your host, Paul Abernathy, a true authority in the industry with over 38 years of trade experience, as he electrifies your mind with in-depth discussions, expert tips, and valuable insights that will keep you ahead of the curve. Each episode, Paul will illuminate the complexities of the trade, decode the National Electrical Code, and share the latest industry trends, all while empowering you to take your electrical career to the next level. So, gear up, plug in, and get ready to supercharge your knowledge, because with the Master the NEC podcast, the power is in your hands. Now get ready. Here is your host, Paul Abernathy.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Master the NEC podcast. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host. As always, I want to thank you for joining me on the podcast. However you're listening to the podcast, whether it's on Spotify, Spreaker, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. Gosh, there's so many ways that you can listen to a podcast these days. You can even listen from our mobile app, which is free over on fasttraxsystem.com. You can listen over there for free. Just download the free app. There's a bunch of other tools there, blog access, message board, all this good stuff over there if you just want to gain more knowledge about the National Electrical Code and just make you a better electrician all around and share it with your friends. But thanks for joining me for this podcast. Today's podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about mastering the electrical exam. It's basically what every future electrician must know when you're preparing to take an electrical exam. So we're going to cover a bunch of topics today. And of course, there is no better way to learn the NEC than getting a true program that's designed to be give you the basics, right? Take you from point A to point B. And there is no better program than our Fast Trax program. It's a trademarked program. It's available on our website. The link will be down in the description. If you really want to learn the NEC, you want to reduce the amount of time that you spend flipping through the code book and just get better at it. I mean, let's face it, if you're an electrician or aspiring to be one, you really need to know the NEC. Everything you do is based around the NEC. Yes, you know how to pull cable, install conductors in raceways, bend raceways. Yeah, but you need to understand why you do it. And that's what we develop the Fast Trax programs for. Whether you're exam prep or you just want to get better knowledge, we have courses for you, as well as grounding and bonding. Check that out over on Fast Trax System. That's Trax, by the way. FastTraxSystem.com. Check it out. All right, so let's get started a little bit today in this episode. We're going to talk about the importance of a structured program, how it has to be engaging, and then again, the focus on not only the visual, means good illustrations where necessary, but also just kind of things that help you truly understand the NEC better. And again, break it down. You want a course that breaks it down so it's easy, because the National Electrical Code is not an easy document to understand. It can be complicated. Okay, so we're going to set the tone. We're going to be kind of trying to get you informed, and we're going to, the goal here is for apprentices and journeyman electricians or apprentice electricians or even helpers that are going to be preparing to take their electrical exam. Now, first thing, it is very daunting to understand the process of getting your exam, but in most states, the first thing you'll need to do is make sure you get your hours. You got to put the time in. And in many states, you have to have formal training. So it may be 240 hours of vocational training. In some states, it may be even more than that. Some states, it may be just a certain number of years under the tutelage of a master electrician who's willing to sign off that they instructed you for a period of time. So you really need to look at your state licensing board and find out what you need to do. That's the first thing you should do. Before you start stressing out about an exam or what you have to do, is make sure that you understand, and that should be the first thing you really do when you get in this trade, is set your roadmap. Where do I need to be? Do I need to be somewhere in 2 years? A year? Is it 3 years? That's what you need to do. also, along the way, if you're really focused, and people forget about this, you want to be an electrician, you want to be a professional at this trade, you need to start getting used to keeping records and taking notes and get you. I always had a little notepad that I kept in my pocket that I would write things down the moment I hear them. I would write down, okay, if my state requires me to get this many hours, then I'm going to be recording my hours, whether I keep a paycheck stub that shows it and keep it in a folder, whatever. You need to, this is a modern electrician. You need to start keeping track of these things, and don't assume that other people will keep track of that for you, especially in your career where you may be an apprentice or a helper and you may be going between employer to employer. Don't expect that employer to be as diligent as you would be with your own information. Okay. So it's very important. Now, in today's episode, we'll also remove some myths, and we're going to kind of build your confidence a little bit in how you should structure your learning process, so you're really not wasting time. Because again, you're going to start out as a helper or an apprentice. You're not going to be making the money that you'd like to make eventually. And I get it. We want to always make more. But you need to work from A to B to C. You need to work through it and gain the experience, the knowledge that does move you up the ladder so that you can get a higher pay. But you have to start somewhere. Okay. I hear from a lot of people who say, I want to be an electrician or whatever, and they think they can just leave from one career and jump into electrical and make the same they made in another career. That is not going to happen, okay? So this is going to be talking about that. So it's for you apprentices, it's for you journeymans, it's for you masters who may be taking tests in multiple states, and you have a master's exam you're going to have to take in multiple states because maybe you're the license holder for your state, or for the company in these various states. Also, we do a lot of training for electrical inspectors, because most of the exams, like the ICC E1, E2, and E3s, E1 being residential, E2 being commercial, and E3 being plans examiner, they're still based on the National Electrical Code. The only difference is with the E1, they try to base it more on using the residential building code with the electrical portion in there, the module. But I tell people, ignore that and still just learn the NEC. It's going to help you, because then if you move on to the E2, which is commercial, you will not be using the International Residential Code or the International Building Code. You're going to be using the NEC, National Electrical Code. So might as well start early learning the code. And then as you move on to your E3, if you're an inspector or you have a desire to be, E3 is just more of really E2, but it throws on top of it a little bit about the plans review. So you just got to be used to looking at some plans, get some plans and look at it and make sure you understand where a lighting schedule is, how to look up the circuit, how to tell where it's at, how to look at a symbol that's on the drawings and what that symbol means. Like maybe looking at a disconnect and seeing what its frame is versus what the actual overcurrent protection is in there, or whether or not it has overcurrent protection at all. And how to look on a schedule and find things. That's really the only difference between E2 and E3 for you inspectors out there, that type of things. So, all right, so kind of that's what we're going to do. So now if you can read the code book, you can pass the exam. Okay, today we'll just kind of talk about how you do it. Now, a couple talking points, why people fail on an electrical exam. Well, number one, they don't understand the question structure. Now, in our programs, and you've heard me talk about this on my podcasts, and I've been talking about this for decades now, you have to understand how to structurally read a question and understand it may give you a paragraph of information, but there's only one sentence in there that means anything. Everything else is just fluff to mislead you. Now, they're not trying to do this to trick you. It is all about comprehension and being able to read the question and dissect what it's asking. Now, it's simple to say that when you're in school and you're doing these SATs and you're doing these exams in school, one of the big things is reading comprehension. And so they'll give you questions and you have to try to figure out what the topic is. This is no different. But it's electrical and it's tough jargon in the NEC. Okay, it's very technical. And so you have to get familiar with breaking it down. How do you do that? Well, if you're studying for your exam, You need to take your questions. For example, in our program, we give you over 800 plus questions. Plus, of course, you get competency questions. But there's a certain number of practice exams that we tell you do not time yourself. Just take your time and look at a question and go over that question, even if it takes you 20 minutes. And people say, oh, no, don't do that. You'll run out of time. You're not preparing for the exam yet. You're gaining your knowledge. But what you're doing is look for every possible term that's in that question that could lead you to the table of contents or to the index or cross-referencing or certain terminologies that they use that can help you find the answer. And if you can start finding multiple ways to dissect a question to get to the answer you're looking for, and they could be in different locations in the NEC, but give you the same answer, then that's called dissecting a question. And again, I've been preaching this for decades, and it's just now people are starting to understand that. That's why they call me the Godfather of structured exam prep, because I've been talking about this stuff forever. And younger guys that learned and are now starting to incorporate that in their teaching style. And you're welcome, because I've been doing it forever, because it is the proper way to study. Now, one of the things that I also tell people is one of the big problems that folks have, and this is why those crash course things that you do on weekends, people say, hey, take this 2-day course before your exam and you'll be fine. And then ultimately, sadly, I get tons of calls from people that fail. And they want to know, look, I paid $8,000, $9,000 for this crash course. They told me that I could get a guarantee. I could come back and take it again. And that's great. But at the end of the day, you're wasting a lot of time. And the guarantee is not going to get your money back. There is fine print to all those things out there that say you'll get your money back. There is fine print. Okay, I'm just telling you, don't believe everything you read, because if you dig into the fine print, basically it says, well, you're free to take the course again until you pass, that type of thing. Okay, nobody's going to let you take an exam and then you fail and say, I want my money back after they've invested time in you. Okay, it's not how it works. However, the ultimate goal is what? The ultimate goal is for you to pass the exam, right? So don't rely on memory instead of navigation. There's people out there that are on Instagram, and they put these videos out there and they say that you don't need to memorize the code. You don't. You really don't need to memorize the code at all. Okay. One of the things that you have to realize is that there's nothing you not necessarily have to memorize anything to be successful. What you have to understand, how do I navigate it? How do I look things up? How do I find things? That's the key. That's the fundamental key, is how do I move through this book? How can I look at a question and start to understand the logic of how I find the answer? Now, this is the difference between flipping through a code book. And again, some of this is going to sound like a commercial, but I can't help it. We developed the Fast Trax program because of this. Whether you're preparing for an exam or you just want to get better out in the field, you want to be more knowledgeable, fail less inspections, things like that, is that you really have to understand that we feed you the content in our program from 19 units. And so subconsciously, you're going to remember a lot of things in our program, because that's just the way it is. Because what we do is we give you these little chevrons, right? We give you the code reference. You go look it up in the code. You come back to the lesson. You read the lesson. You'll get another chevron, send you to the code. So you're going back and forth with a structured plan, not just a free willy type of plan where you're just going from here. Then I'll think, well, I'll assume they'll ask me something about motors, so I'll go to 430, or they'll assume they'll ask me something about it, so I'll go. No, there is a rhyme and reason why we do it the way we do it in our programs. I can't speak for everybody else. I can only tell you that's why we do it the way we do it. And along that journey, if you're in like our enhanced program, you also can go over to the Fast Trax tube and watch a related video that may hammer home an important concept. And all of that helps you maintain. It makes it a little easier for you to remember some of those key things. like I said, you don't need to remember the whole code. It's unnecessary if you got your code book with you. Okay. But what you will realize is that these exams are timed. So even though you may be really good at navigation, it's still timed. So it does behoove you to understand certain elements that are you just know it by heart because you've done it over again. You followed a structured plan. So you know that 210's branch circuits, 215 are feeder, 225 are outside branch circuits and feeders. You understand the different nuances in the tables for motors, FLC, 430, 248, 249, 250. You get it. And you understand the 2-foot, 4-foot rule or the 6-foot, 12-foot rule in 210.52. You understand these things because you do it every day, but now you're learning, this is why I do it. And those kind of things will last in your memory because you just do them repetitively. There's the little nuances that are in the code that are usually low-hanging fruit for an electrical exam that you're not going to necessarily do every day. And so we try to spoon feed those things to you over and over, and then we test you with competency reviews, and we change the questions a little bit. So they're not exactly what you went over in the lesson. We don't want to do that. That would be cheating. We want to make the competency reviews tough. So you have to read them very carefully, right? So again, like I tell people, navigation and understanding, you don't have to commit things to memory, but the more of the basic stuff that you can commit to memory, it's going to reduce the time you're in there on the exam. And it's just overall going to help you move through it much quicker. Plus, it's going to help you in the field. And we teach it that way. But no, you don't have to memorize the entire NEC to be successful on an exam or in the field. That's why your code book's there. Now, there's also an element where you may be weak in your fundamentals, okay? And we're talking fundamentals like understanding Ohm's law, and there may be only 1 or 2 questions on an exam that has to do with Ohm's law or Watt's law or something like that. Well, you certainly don't want to get them wrong if you can help it. Maybe there's something on series or parallel circuits, and again, it's not going to be over complicated, but little things, you want to get those little ones, okay? But it's not the end of the world. But the other fundamentals that you need to understand is you really need to understand the concept of conductor sizing. And conductor sizing is one of the most confusing things in the National Electrical Code. I mean, if you've got a good grasp of understanding 310.16 and the ampacity tables, and then you understand how 310.15B11 and 310.15C1 work when it comes to more than 3 current carrying conductors, or if you have 10 current carrying conductors, or if you're dealing with an ambient temperature other than 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, what do you do? How do you do this? If you don't understand the 83% rule that we have in 310.12, and it's not an exception, that's a rule, it's permissible to use. If you don't understand those things when it comes to conductor sizing and understanding 110.14 when it comes to terminal and temperature limitations, then that is fundamentally a large part of a lot of exams, as well as in the field. Picking the wrong size conductor because you didn't do a proper adjustment or correction can ruin the day. I'm just saying. Also, load calculations. On electrical exams, they're not typically going to ask you to do the load calculation for an entire building or house or commercial building or anything. What they're going to ask you is any potential component. Like they may ask you something about the appliances, and you need to understand its standard method. If you have 4 or more, then you're going to have a demand factor that you can apply. If you're doing the optional method, you're taking nameplate, and the demand is figured into the entire equation. So critically important for you to nail those things down. Now, in our program, we give you these printout sheets that you can print them out and you use them. They're like templates. And you use these templates not because it's like, well, why do I want a template? I'm cheating. No. The templates are there in order to explain these steps so that if any exam question comes up that asks you any of the steps, whether it's for appliances, whether it's for dealing with the general use and general lighting application, or whether or not it's talking about ranges or dryers, you understand fully how to do each piece of it. Because in the real world, you got to do it all. But on an exam, very rarely do they ask a full load calc. Somebody's going to immediately reply to this podcast and go, oh, in my state, they make you do a 4-story building. Whatever. Okay, that is the exception to the general rule. How do I know this? Because I've served on these committees that write the questions for exams. It's just not how we write a question. That is not what we're trying to do. And you're going to drive yourself crazy if you try to study that way. You really are. So that's not. Just learn the basics and the fundamentals, okay? The other thing is fear of time. You've got a 3-hour or 4-hour deadline. There is a process that we call the 3-wave method that you can listen to over on Fast Trax Tube. We talk you through the best way to go through an exam. It is literally not brain surgery, but it is going to yield the best chance. So go to Fast Trax Tube, that's Fast Trax, Trax, tube.com, and search for 3-wave or 3-wave method. If you're a subscriber, you should be able to find it with no problem. Watch that, because that is how you should tackle a timed exam, exactly that way, okay? There's another thing that I get from people is the anxiety, okay? Why people fail is they're overstressed out about an exam. Don't be. Don't worry about anything that you think is a trick question. Don't let that little thing get in your head, because every question is solvable. So it's in theory not a trick question. It's just a difficult question. But don't dwell on it, because when I get calls from people who say, hey, Paul, I failed my exam by 1 point. And I'm like, okay, so the passing score was 70. You got a 69. It was 100 questions. They go, yes. I'm like, do you realize that in my world, you actually fell 31 questions short? And there is a plethora of potential questions in there that you could have gotten right and passed. But in their mind, they're focusing on one thing. They're like, oh, if I just had gotten that motor question right, or if I just had got this. Stop. That is not the way to target it. That is not the way to think, okay? You blew it by way more than 1 point. Yeah, I get it. One more, you would have got your license, okay? But the reality is you've already failed. That is not the mentality you need to take. The mentality is that you're saying, look, when I take this test again, this is not even going to be in the equation, okay? Because I'm going for the record. And it's a mental approach to how you study. And so many people don't do it that way, and they just go flipping through a code book and they think that's not. Now, some people pass, and then they'll go out there on social media and say, I didn't have to study. Not everybody's created equal. When is everybody going to get that? When are these people out there on social media and say, this is what I did, and you don't need to? Not everybody is created equal. And I have taught over 80,000 students how to pass exams. And they've all been different. I've worked with students who struggle and some that just get it right away. Everybody's different. And the instructor who can't realize that is not worthy of you giving them a dime, okay? Because you have to develop a program that's going to be appealing to masses of different levels of technical skill or understanding or comprehension. And that's what we tried to do. And again, if I can give one thing back to the industry, it's like change how you teach, okay? And then at the end of the day, it's the lack of practice with the real NEC, and that's why we give you all these competency reviews in our program, to test your knowledge before you should move on to the next unit. If you really bombed it, you need to go back into the unit that you're working on, okay? Because there's something you didn't comprehend. And of course, in our program, we have a feature called Fast Trax Interact, which means that you're never alone. It means that you can ask us questions at any time in the program and copy and paste the question in there, whatever, screen capture it on your computer and paste it in there, whatever you want to do, and we will explain it to you. And nobody else does that, but I believe in your success, so that's why I created this Fast Trax system. And that's what it is. It's not just a code exam, a code prep course. It's an entire system with the interactive features, the video backing it up, everything together. That's what we bring. Okay. Now, the next thing we think is your blueprint. How do we develop a blueprint for your success? Okay. So, how the exam isn't testing your memory, it's really testing your ability to find answers fast. And over time, if you do like I say, and you use a lot of the practice questions for dissection, take your time, use them to try to find the answers many ways, then it's only going to make you better. Okay. The NEC is just a reference manual. It's a reference document. The better you are with moving through it, the better you're going to be. There are certain things, like I said, that you're going to commit to memory because you do them every day. But you're certainly not going to do everything that's in that code book. And you're going to be tested on things that you may never touch. Okay? You may have never done EV. Okay? But you might get a question on EV. And so at the end of the day, you need to know where to go. And so that's why you're studying. Okay? So get used to scanning the articles, and we cover that. Know the layout of the code. Like I said, it's so fundamental to understand that chapters 1 through 4 are mandatory rules that apply throughout the NEC, but they can be supplemented and modified in chapters 5 through 7 if you're in the 2023. If you're in the 2026 edition and you're studying, when that comes out, or when we produce a course for that, or if you're just studying in general and your exams on the 2026, then it's going to be the same, but chapters 5 through 8 can supplement or modify anything in chapters 1 through 8. So a little bit of a change there for the 2026 makes sense, but it just takes discipline, okay? And learn how to use that index. And the only way you're going to get better at navigating, and I tell people all the time, they've watched me on some of my videos where I can spend 10 minutes in the index. Why do I do that? Because I want to learn. My mind is being trained to know what's in there and what's not in there. So I know not to go here for something because I'm just going down a rabbit hole. You'll get better as you do it. You'll just get better in it. Okay. Now, the core concepts, every test taker, you must master these things. And we're going to focus on 6 pillars that show up on generally every exam. Okay. And I say generally, you're going to get some Ohm's Law questions. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3, but they do show up on exams, and you need to understand Ohm's Law. It's not brain surgery. If you can write down, if they let you write things on scratch paper, the first thing you do when you sit down is do your Ohm's wheel, do your power wheel the best you can, get you set. And a lot of states give it to you. Like Texas, they'll give you an Ohm's wheel or power wheel. Okay, so but just understand how to do it. You really need to understand conductor ampacities, folks. Whether it's feeders or branch circuits, you need to understand 31016 ampacities. You need to understand the adjustments and corrections in 31015B11 and 31015C. You need to understand that. You need to understand 310.12 when it comes to the 83% rule and when you can apply it and when you can't. Okay? Fundamental things. And in our Fast Trax Tube video platform, we have a program called Derating Demystified. And it's part 3, version 3 is out now, and we're working on version 4 for the 2026 edition. But it's the same principles. It walks you through how to do adjustment and corrections properly. It really does. And so that's important for you to check that out. Next is box fill calcs. Just make sure you understand you have a firm grip on box fill. Whether it's 1 or 2 questions, again, if many of you are focusing on just passing, missing any one of these, which you should be able to study properly for, is like throwing away a question. These should be no-brainers. It's the off-the-wall ones that should be giving you trouble, but these should be something that you study. In our program, we have an extensive unit that talks about box fill, goes over all the details about box fill with the devices, the conductors, all those type of things, connectors, clamps. All this is covered in detail with examples and illustrations. Right? Of course, you got Fast Trax Interact if you want to ask a question, but it's all pretty straightforward. But it's important that you do understand it. And of course, you use this every day out in the field. So you might realize, oh crap, I'm actually violating box fill out in the field, and inspectors never really brought it up because they're not going to really stop and look in every box. But you need to understand how to do it, whether it's for the exam or even in real life. You need to understand box fill. Whether you agree with it or not, whether you think, what the hell's one more conductor in a box, it doesn't matter. You need to understand it. Also, service and feeder load calculations, Article 220. You need to understand how Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4 fundamentally work, whether it's the standard method, we call it, or the optional method in Part 4. You need to understand how they work, and we cover this extensively in our program in Unit 8, 11, and 13, and we give you those little handouts as well that you can print out. You can get them laminated. You can use a dry erase pen and use it over and over and over again, even come up with some fake scenarios, just kind of draw out a dwelling and put all these things in it that you would want to put, maybe your dream home, and then do the calculation on it. It's only going to make you better. But the key thing is, know how to do the calculation to the point where if you get asked any single element, you know how to calculate it out. That's it. Understand that. The next is the equipment grounding and bonding. Shows up a lot on exams. Make sure you understand grounding electrode conductor sizing, 250.66. Make sure you understand different things about the electrodes in 250.52. And then, of course, bonding requirements. It's important for the NEC that when you're thinking about Article 250, understand fundamentals, whether it's sizing of a supply side bonding jumper, a load side bonding jumper, okay, a main bonding jumper, a system bonding jumper, again, equipment bonding jumper. I might have said that. Equipment grounding conductor, I probably already said that. All these things are fundamental that you should go through. Now, our course will systematically give those to you. But if you're studying without a course, you still need to create some structure. These are the important things to focus on, okay? Because that is the important stuff that's usually going to be on an exam. Understanding that you could still get some obscure question that is grounding and bonding driven. But if you start out by focusing on the important low-hanging fruit aspects that typically show up on exams, then you have a higher probability of success. And as you're looking for these things, you'll stumble across the other questions that get asked from time to time about grounding and bonding. Of course, we do make a course on grounding and bonding, which I helped co-write originally, actually for the 2023 edition. I did not for the 2026 one. And there's books out there. But our program is based on the 2023, and I had a hand in writing that book. And so check it out on our website. It's a great, and it doesn't expire, so you can keep it, and it's a good reference down the road. If you have a grounding and bonding question, you're like, crap, do I use a bonding bushing? Can I use a bonding wedge or bonding lock nut? All these type of things. How do I size the supply side bonding jumper? What about if I want to do a daisy chain versus individual connections to each raceway? Then you can open this. You can open it up on your phone, go right into your course, and boom, it's in logical flow. We follow the NEC's flow when it comes to the course. Okay, so that means from 250.4 to 250.8 to 250.122 to logical flow, so you can look things up easily. And we sell a lot of our courses on grounding and bonding. So that's just a good long-term resource for you if you're interested. Check it out. And then, of course, raceway fill. Make sure you understand the fundamentals of raceway fill calculations, how to use Chapter 9, Tables 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you understand all of those aspects of how to do it. And, of course, we have a great video of that. We cover this in detail in our program. But if you're studying and you don't have a structured program and you're saying, well, I just don't know what to study. Well, I'm giving you those tips, exactly how to do your own self-structured study. We just make it easier for you, and easier means you spend less time on it, and it's a better investment of your time. Okay, so you're not wasting time. But again, you can do this. Understand what Annex C means, and that is just for the number of conductors I can put in there and not exceed the raceway fill. It has absolutely nothing to do with adjustment and corrections. That's a totally different thing that you have to take into consideration. The Chapter 9, the informative Annex C is just telling me how many conductors can I put in a raceway and not exceed the percentage fill. That's all it does, right? It doesn't account for, oh, I can put that many in there. Well, yes, and not exceed raceway fill, but what is the ampacity of those conductors in there when you start bundling them all in there? Then it could be nothing. It's pointless to do it. So you need to understand why you can use Annex C, but why you still have to take into consideration other aspects of the code, like adjustment or corrections. Okay, important things. Okay. Now, there are some speed techniques that you can do to help you prepare for the exam as you're studying, as you're going through the code book. A lot of students will, everything that we reference in the course with chevrons, they, instead of just going willy-nilly and start highlighting everything, and then it becomes more confusing, if you're able to highlight in your code book, so some states allow you to, some states don't. That's your responsibility to determine whether or not your state will allow it. So you need to get with the state testing, whoever's doing the testing, whether it's PSI or what have you, and they have a bulletin out. You just go to their website and look and see what you can and what you can't do in your code book. Some code books you can't do anything. Some you can underline, some you can highlight, some you can even make notes in, okay? But you need to determine that. But when you highlight, you don't want to go crazy because it negates the benefit of highlighting. But some people have learned that when we do a chevron or we call out something, then when you go to the code to read it, that is what you highlight. And only that, as we lead you through the 19 units. So you're only highlighting things that we reference, okay? Trust me, folks, things are done for a reason, and I don't, rather than go into the details of how we came up with it that way, that's just the way it is, and you need to trust in it, okay? It's kind of like the stock market. I hate it. I hate the stock market. I hate having money in the stock market because it goes up and down, but you've got to trust in it over the long haul. It is been up. So same thing here. Trust in what we do in our program. We're doing it for a reason. Okay. Also, why you don't need to highlight everything, again, like I said, is because it's going to draw your mind away from the important thing. Okay. Next, I'll remind you again, one of the biggest things that can help you, or speed techniques, is to practice our 3-wave method technique. And that is basically, in a nutshell, is when you first sit down for your exam, you're going to go through and answer everything you know right away in less than a minute. If you don't know it and it's over a minute, and you don't have to sit there and keep looking at the clock, because trust me, it's going to be ticking away. You'll get that anxiety in you when you spent too long, okay? It's at that mental internal clock that says, okay, dude, I'm nowhere. I've been sitting at this for a little bit and I'm nowhere. But don't go into this analysis by paralysis, or is it the other way around? It's paralysis by analysis. Yeah, don't get into that, okay? Where you end up, next thing you know, 5 minutes is gone and you're on one question. Do not do that. It's a death sentence for your exam, folks. Death sentence. So you just mark it electronically, or if you're taking a written test, just write down on your scratch paper what question it is and circle it, and then go on to the next one. So you can come back to those questions you have written down later in the next wave. But that first wave, move through, answer what you can in less than a minute, move on. Hopefully answer it quicker. And if you've taken our course, there's going to be a lot of those things that you'll be able to answer right away because it's right there in your mind because you've been studying, you've been putting the time in, okay? And just go through it. And then when you get to the end, you'll go to the second wave. And if it's an electronic test, you'll be able to say you want to review all the questions that you marked. Then that's what you do. You review, and it'll take you back to the beginning. And you spend another minute on that question. If you find the answer, you uncheck it and you move on to the next question. If you spend over a minute to a minute and a half and you still can't find the answer, you leave it checked, but you still go to the next question. So every one that you answer subsequently, you uncheck. And you keep on moving through the second wave. Then your third wave is you're going to answer all the ones that are still remained checked. And before you leave that question, you're going to select an answer. Now, whether you use logic and deductive reasoning or elimination, obviously removing the obviously wrong questions so that you increase your odds, you do not want to leave it in the third wave. You do not want to leave a question without providing an answer. Now, if you want to leave it checked so you can come back for even a fourth wave if you want, that's fine. But on that third wave, you want to not leave that question until you have answered it. And you do the best you can to use logic to give you the best odds. Okay, instead of being a 25% odd, you want to increase it to a 50-50, that type of thing. You see what I'm saying? And then move through. Now, I will tell you, in the first two waves, at least, if it's a calculation, and after a minute you're like, this is a complicated calculation, then you mark it and you move on. And you save it for when you've built up some more time in the third wave, okay, or subsequent waves. Do not take away from that first and second wave, because that's going to be where you're going to be generating the extra time to spend in the third wave or subsequent waves, okay, or calculations, okay? It's important to understand the flow. And if you put your mindset in this way, then you're going to be okay. You say, okay, I've got a plan. And that's half the battle, folks. That is half the battle, okay? All right, other tip to remind you is take a ruler if they'll let you, unless they give you one, because again, with a lot of things like indexes, the text is very small. You want to make sure that you're using a ruler in your code book to make sure that you're on the right line, that you're not making a simple scanning mistake. Okay, looking at the code and you just want to make sure that you're on the right line, especially for a lot of these tables. The text is very close together. You just want to, if they let you do it or they give you one, or you use the edge of your scratch paper, whatever you use, when you're going through your code book, make sure you have something to make sure that you're doing that and making sure you're staying on the right line, okay? The other thing that I will tell you is there is a way to read a question. Okay, and it's fundamentally to pace your reading style to read the question, okay? So you read the question. Once you've read the question, you're looking for what in the question is the trigger word, okay? What is the word that you know is not slang, or the slang that you can break down into a common term that is likely to be in the National Electrical Code if it's in the index, okay? That type of thing. So, for example, for me, if I'm reading a question that says, ampacity adjustments for a 90-degree C THHN conductor in a 3/4 EMT with 7 current carrying conductors. Okay. So the first thing that I'm thinking about in that question is that it's THHN. So I'm going to be able to do adjustment and corrections. Okay, in this case, since it's THHN, 2 H's, it's rated 90 degrees. Okay, so I'm already know the terminal. And I'm thinking, okay, well, it's 3/4 EMT, and it's 7 current carrying conductors. Now, the reason I gave you that question that way is that's not typically how it's going to be on an exam. Why? Because what did they not tell you? Well, they didn't tell me the size of the conductor. So I don't know where to start, right? They told me it was 3/4 EMT with 7 current carrying conductors, right? But I don't know what size these conductors are. But that question alone is one that we use a lot when I was tutoring to just trigger thoughts from the student. I just want to hear what they say. And I go, okay, Paul, I can't do this because I don't know the conductor size. So how can I do an adjustment and correction for a number of current carrying conductors if I don't know? It just says 90 degree C THHN. It didn't say what size conductor. It didn't say what the amps were. It didn't give me anything to be able to get from point A to point B. And that's exactly what I wanted you to do. That is how you take a question. Now, in our exam prep program, that's not how it is, because all of our questions give you what you need. Okay? It gives you what you need to do. Okay? So, but I like thought-provoking type of questions just so students can come back with, well, I need to know this or I need to know that. And then some questions will give you you'll think that it's not enough information, but it is more than enough information there. More than enough. Okay. Another thing, you might get a question says, do a box fill. You have 4 12s plus 2 devices. Okay. So your mind is thinking, okay, if this was a box fill and I have a raceway coming in, there's a total of 4 12 gauge. Okay. Which is basically 310 what is it? 314.16. So you're basically saying, okay, I've got 2.25 cubic inch per conductor. Okay. And you're telling me I have 4 12s, and the devices are going to be, obviously these are 12s that are going to connect to the devices. So it's 2 times the largest conductor that's connected to it. So that means I've got 4 12s, but I've got 2 devices. So that's 2 per device because it's a double volume. So I've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 12s overall at 2.25. Okay. So that just tells me what the fill is based on these things. And sometimes you might say, well, I don't know. Are there any equipment grounds? I'm just saying, look, the point of this question a lot of times for students is to go, all right, well, the reason that we were doing this, one, is to get you familiar with 314.16, okay? And 2 is to realize that just answer what's given to you. Don't assume anything. I don't know what box we're using. I don't know what the cubic inches of that box is. I don't know any of that, but I wasn't asking any of that. All I was asking is I got 4 12s and I got 2 devices. So what's the box fill? Well, logically, if they're 12s and you go look at 314.16, you're going to see it's 2.25 cubic inches per 12 conductor. I've got 4 of them. And then I got 2 devices, and the devices are a double volume each based on the size of the conductors that are connecting to it, which obviously are 12s because I've got 4 12s there. Then that's how I'm going to come up with 2, 4. And I've got 4 plus the 2 for each device. So that is 8 conductors at 2.25 each. So these are just thoughts. That's it. Thoughts. And believe it or not, when you're studying, that's what's going to help you learn. And so that's kind of it. Sometimes even a bad question is a good question because all it's really trying to do is make you think and not read something into it. And that's one of the things that we do on purpose a lot is we want you to not let the mind wander. We want you to very much focus. There's quite a few questions in our competency reviews that really, if you don't read it well enough, it can screw with your mind. Okay? It can literally screw with your mind. And you're like, Jesus, I don't get it. What am I doing wrong? Okay? That type of thing. All right. So there you go. Now, a lot of times with students, I also tell them, how do you manage the mental game when it comes to preparing for an exam? And you better start now while you're preparing, is how to manage your anxiety. Some people are really knowledgeable in the code. They could, in my mind, they could pass any exam that's put in front of them, but yet they still fail. And usually it's because they don't test well. They have test anxiety. They realize that there's so much pressure, whether it's getting a promotion, whether it's getting to be my own boss or owning my own company or starting my own business or making things better for my family, or I put in all these years, damn it, I should be able to nail this exam. Why am I so stressed out over it? Well, it's because it is important. And in licensing and testing is the benchmark. It doesn't mean you're the best in the world just because you pass an exam, but it means that you're on your way. And you got to get past that entry. So it is very stressful. So get used to breathing and pacing yourself. 3-wave method can incredibly help you. Structured programs reduce the stress because you got this. You put in the time. I recommend, people ask me all the time, Paul, how much time should I spend studying for an exam? Now, we've been studying these numbers in our programs for well over a decade. Okay? And the way to think about this is you need to spend anywhere between 95 to 100 hours of dedicated study. That's not with your significant other breathing down your neck or the kids playing the TV or gaming in the background, by yourself in your environment, focused, plotting the time out to make sure you've got you time so that you can put in what's necessary. You need at least 90 days. Now, I have a guy that was mad at me just last week. He reached out and he was going to buy our course, and he purchased the course. And, I could tell he wasn't very tech savvy because he ended up in emails saying, I can't get in, or I couldn't get in, or something. He was having some kind of problem and he was panicking. I mean, he just bought the course. He just bought it. And he was panicking already. I could tell it the way he was going crazy. And, he was worried more about his money. And I was like, dude, my courses ain't that expensive, so chill out, relax. But he was already freaking out. So I responded back and he said, I got to take my test in 12 days. And my response to him is, why on earth did you buy my program? Because I say enough everywhere on my website. There are a lot of people out there, folks, trust me, they will sell you a program. They don't care whether you're one day. They don't care whether you pass or fail. I care. Now, you can say all kinds of shit about me you want online, or you can hide behind your Facebook group or whatever, knowing that I'm never going to come there and debate you. You could say what you want about me. But and you can be a little home inspector somewhere and think you're knowledgeable about something. But the reality is, I've been doing this for this industry for damn near 40 years. I care because I wouldn't give away as many tools and do different things in this industry to not care. Yes, I make a living, but I do these things because I care. I create tools, free quizzes, things that I do because I care. Now, with that said, you have to understand that you need to put in at least 90 days of dedicated study in the program. That's at least 2 hours a week. 2 times a week, at least 4 hours each session. Okay, I almost got that backwards. Okay, at least 2 times, whether you're doing it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but you need to at least do that for 4 hours of dedicated study in our program where you are just locked in. Now, if you want to do it more than that, that's fine. If you think, well, I'll do it twice that, and that way I don't need to spend 90 days. I can do it in 60 days. That's fine. But remember, there is an element of where you can spend way too much time, and now it just becomes a big jumbling gobbledygook. And if you are going to do it quicker, make sure that at any moment you get confused because you're really overloading the learning, that you use something like our Fast Trax Fast Trax Interact to ask a question, because I don't want you moving forward if you're confused. Just because you're on a fast pace, you still need to make sure you're studying the right way, learning it the right way, comprehending it the right way. These are important factors. But you need to think about the commitment. Now, everybody starts out saying, well, I'm going to study every day. I got to have this. I'm going to do this. Look, anyway, the long story short with the gentleman, I ended up refunding him. And I didn't really do refunds because, again, your goal is to pass an exam, and that's what we're here for. I mean, why should I refund you? You got into the program because you wanted to learn. I'm telling you right now, everything you need to pass is in our program. Everything and more. The only reason you don't pass is on you. It ain't on us. It's on you, because I'm here to answer any questions you want. So, but he was like, he's like, I'm testing in like 2 weeks or whatever. And I'm like, dude, you should have never bought our program. Well, he replied back. He said, you're arrogant, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, I've already refunded your money because I don't want to set you up for failure. Now, some people still buy our program with only a week out or 2 weeks out, and you're going to learn something. And if you don't pass, you can always keep studying because it doesn't expire, and it's a good resource to have moving forward. So that's a positive way to look at it. But I could already tell this dude was so high-strung that no matter what happened, he was going to find everybody else to blame for his problems of why he wasn't successful. And I don't want that. I don't have no desire for that. I want you to learn. And yes, can you do it quicker than 90 days? Absolutely. But if you need to be very honest with yourself and realize that life gets in the way. You have family to take care of, commitments to take care of. Sometimes when you're studying, you're not as focused as you should be. When you get stumped by something, you end up just saying, oh, I'll figure it out later. No, you need to stop and use our course the right way, folks. That's what's different between our program and anybody else's. Whether it's the ones you buy DVDs, they're great products. The books you get, that's fine. But what sets us apart is, I'm going to be very honest, and again, people can say it's conceited, but it's what you get is me. I am here to answer your questions in our program. It's built into the program. You don't get that with any other program. You don't get the bait and switch stuff on YouTube where everybody advertises free courses, free courses, free courses, and then they end up wanting you to subscribe. That's not how it works with me. Okay? I sell courses because I make a living, and so we're mutually invested. You're invested in me, I'm invested in you. That's how I do it. Everybody's different, but that's how I do it. Okay? So again, trust in the code, not in your memory, focused, put the time in, that's going to pay dividends for you. Okay. Now, as far as resources out there to learn, folks, I'm going to tell you, obviously our structured program is the right way, but we also have tradehog.net, which you can ask questions in there. Okay. You also have the NEC quiz, which is an app that we have, it has some online quizzes. Okay. You've got Fast Trax Tube if you get the enhanced program. And the only difference between our basic and enhanced is that we just go on and give you a year's subscription to the Fast Trax Tube included in there at a discounted price. That's the only difference. Same program. But what you do is it allows you to reaffirm these things by watching specific tailored videos on certain things like range calculations, box fill, single family, multifamily. Okay. They help supplement your learning and it helps increase your comprehension. Okay. I don't believe in video-only courses. I believe in a two-pronged or three-pronged approach, right? Verbiage, images, and video. That's how I believe people absorb it and they keep it mentally for a longer period of time. Because it's so easy to forget things, okay? So we give you all of those resources that you can utilize, okay? All right, so that's, if I had to wrap this up for you, think of it this way. There's 5-step formula that can help for that final exam on that test day. The strategy, okay, is utilize the 3-wave method, practice dissecting questions up till you get to about 2 weeks before your exam. Then you can start timing yourself. Don't time yourself until you get to that period. Take your time and dissect the questions, okay? Follow the 3-wave method. If you don't know what that is, again, you can rewind this back. I explained it earlier, or you can go watch our 3-wave method video on Fast Trax Tube. Follow that structure, okay? And go in there mentally prepared. Mentally prepared. It's not a matter of whether or not you're going to pass it. The matter of whether or not you're going to set the record, okay? You've got this, folks. I've been doing this, again, nearly 40 years. It just seems like a blur to me. I've been doing this for so long, but I still genuinely enjoy helping people be successful. And hopefully you got something out of this podcast and it will help you out in your future. And just, again, we encourage you, if you really do want to get into a structured program and really learn the NEC, whether or not you're preparing for an exam or an inspector's exam, or you just want to get better at the NEC and have a resource in your pocket, our courses don't expire. We have them for the 2020, 2023 NEC. We have grounding and bonding. We have even a motors course over there, a video series. Check it out, folks. We encourage you, if you just want a good collection of database questions, we have a database questions that are available that's nearly 800 exam-style questions. Check that out. We appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you on an upcoming podcast or watch one of our videos over on Fast Trax Tube. We'd love to have you as a subscriber over there as well. Take care. God bless. And we'll catch you on the next Master the NEC podcast. Take care.
Thanks for tuning into another electrifying episode of the Master the NEC podcast. We hope you're feeling more powered up and ready to tackle the electrical world with the knowledge and confidence you need to succeed. Remember, in the electrical trade, knowledge is power, and we're here to make sure you stay plugged into the latest insights, tips, and code updates. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share the podcast with your fellow electricians and industry pros. Until next time, keep your tools sharp, your circuits clear, and your mind focused, because here at the Master the NEC podcast, we're all about sparking your success. Stay safe, stay smart, and keep mastering the trade. From all of us here at Electrical Code Academy, thank you for all your support, and we will see you on the next amazing Master the NEC podcast episode.